Hey there, today I get to talk about the King and Queen of Attilan, Blackbolt and Medusa. My name is Nate, and welcome to the Gamers Guild. The Inhumans are probably one of the lesser-known groups among the Marvel Universe, especially when compared to our prior releases that have gotten their time to shine on the big or small screen. And, well, the Inhumans did also have a show, but it was short-lived and, to be frank, a pretty rough watch. However, despite being one of Marvel's smaller properties, they are certainly not lacking in terms of powerful abilities. Their king, most of all. Blackbolt has the alter ego of Boltigan. He has 5 stamina, moves medium, is size 2, and has a threat rating of 5. His physical and energy defenses are a pretty solid 4, but his mystic is rather low with just 2 dice. Thankfully, he'll have some help for that in his superpowers, but before we get into that, let's talk about some of his really nice attacks. Energy Bolt is, unsurprisingly, an energy attack that has a range of 4, a strength of 5 for 0 power. It has that usual line of text that after this attack is resolved, Blackbolt will gain power equal to the damage dealt. But in addition to that, if you get a wild, the attack will also gain Pierce, allowing Blackbolt to change a crit, wild, or hit in the defender's dice roll to a blank. Pierce is a great ability, and being able to have it on his power building attack should mean Blackbolt will be able to build his power base quite nicely. His second attack is a physical one called Master Punch. It has a range of 3, strength of 7, and costs 4 power. And there are 2 really nice abilities that can play off of one another quite nicely. The first ability lets Blackbolt be placed within range 1 of the target after the attack is resolved. The second ability is that if this attack deals damage and the target is size 4 or less, Blackbolt can throw them short after the attack is resolved. So because both of these abilities trigger in the same window, you can choose the order in which they will resolve. This means Blackbolt can throw someone and then be placed next to them if you want to get some extra movement, or you can place yourself on an objective and then throw the target off of that same objective. The versatility of these abilities is really nice, and really just getting the guaranteed movement for a character who is otherwise pretty average in their mobility. I will be saving his leadership ability until the end of the video so that I can give my thoughts on everything we know about the affiliation at this point. And with that, we will get into Blackbolt's superpowers. First is his active superpower named, well, Focus Power, and it costs 3. It allows Blackbolt to add 2 dice to his next attack action he makes. And the wording here matters because it does say attack action and not just next attack like Valkyrie's Warrior of Legend. So this means if Blackbolt gets access to, I don't know, some sort of beam attack, he'll be rolling 2 extra dice on each of the attacks made with that beam attack. Then he also has the reactive power Anti-Graviton Field. For 2 power, Blackbolt can roll 2 extra defense dice when he is targeted by an attack. This stacking onto his already formidable physical and energy is great when he needs it, but really this helps his very weak mystic defense a lot. Then finally we have his 2 innate powers. The most interesting of which to me is Inhuman. It allows Blackbolt to reroll 1 die in his attack and defense rolls for free. No additional costs associated with it, just free consistency. And judging by its name, I have a feeling that our fellow residents of Attilan will have this power very much like the Asgardians have their very own resident innate power. And finally, Blackbolt is immune to poison and has the flight keyword. So on his healthy side, he seems like a pretty viable threat in his own right, just maybe lacking in the health department. Well, no worries, because Blackbolt has 2 pretty significant changes on his injured side. First is that his stamina goes up to a whopping 9. So overall, he is on Thor's level of stamina, just spread out a little bit differently. And on his injured side, Blackbolt decides to let loose and whisper at his adversaries. Don't get me wrong, this Whisper, though, is a Beam 4 attack that naturally rolls 9 dice for 6 power. And because that isn't terrifying enough as it is, this attack will also stun the target after the attack is resolved, and if a wild is rolled, the attack will also stagger the enemy character. And on 9 dice, the odds are in your favor there. But a particularly nasty bit of tech this attack has is like nothing we have never seen before in the game. The third ability on Whisper says, after the range tool is placed for this attack, destroy all size 2 or smaller interactive terrain features it overlaps. So this would be done before any dice are rolled, and in the process, probably stripping away a decent bit of cover while making Magneto a very happy individual. So now that we know the full character of Mr. Bolt again, where does he fit? What does he excel at on the table? And my first thoughts here are that he is maybe the most well-rounded 5-threat character we have seen in the game so far. He isn't going to outclass MODOK as a gun emplacement, he's not nearly as mobile as Angela, and he doesn't have any support elements like Doctor Strange, but he does just a bit of everything and does it well. A 5-dice energy power-generating attack is great and made even better with Pierce. And as if it wasn't enough, you get to re-roll a die, so it's almost like getting to roll a 6-dice attack for his builder. This is a great starting point for him because I think he will like his power. And his builder attack should keep him pretty well fed. His other attacks are also really nice with some guaranteed mobility from his Master Punch, along with a pretty good chance for a throw. And then Whisper is, well, disgusting, and can easily get up to 11 dice with Focus Power. All of his attacks are solid, he has a variety of damage types, and with built-in dice modification, his offense is solid. And defense is a pretty similar story. A guaranteed reroll on 4 dice is great, and being able to bolster your defenses as well is going to make Blackbolt a good bit more durable than Thor and Angela, which I feel like is saying something since both of those characters are already pretty durable to begin with. Now, before I get into my one con for Blackbolt, I want to point out that his mobility is really closer to average than anything else. Thor's charge and Angela's ridiculous number of mobility tricks are at the top of the 5-threat class for mobility, but Blackbolt still has more tricks than Doctor Strange or MODOK. Admittedly, it is only one trick, and Blackbolt has to have 4 power to use the attack that triggers it, but I cannot think of the number of times I've had to move and then attack with Doctor Strange after getting pushed off an objective. Blackbolt's attack in place I think will be a great attack since it is its only form of board control as well. And on that note, these are the 2 things I will hold against the otherwise extremely well-rounded Blackbolt. The first is his lack of board control. The lack of an easy access, throw, or push is a bit unfortunate for a 5-threat character. Granted, with how well he plays the role of a one-man army, this will hold him back from single-handedly holding down one side of a table. The other thing that is a slight concern is that low Mystic defense. Thankfully, he does have a way to buff it up to 4 dice, and will even then have a reroll as well. But if he gets stuck in a dark alley against Ebony Maw or the Defenders, he's not going to enjoy it. But really, that's it. That's all I can hold against him, and my 2 points that are cons are already slightly offset because he has ways to mitigate them, and they just add up in power cost over time. All in all, Blackbolt is a great 5-threat character that your opponent cannot afford to ignore, but is also going to be pretty difficult to find an easy answer for as well. While obviously he will be at home with the Inhumans, I do think that there are a couple of affiliations that stand out to me as a good second home. First of which is the Avengers. Blackbolt's long-term problem in a game might end up being a loss in power supply, and with the Avengers' leadership ability, suddenly his defense buff only costs 1, and he can add 2 dice to an attack for 2 power, which is the same rate as any tactic card in the game. And similarly, I think if you are a Cabal player looking for a MODOK-esque character that can also play well on an objective like Extremis consoles, Blackbolt will appreciate the extra power Red Skull can provide him. And Red Skull, in turn, will appreciate a character he doesn't have to babysit to help move around the battlefield. So, with the king done, let's talk about the queen. Medusa has the alter ego of... yeah, I'm not even going to try that one, but she does have 6 stamina, moves medium, is size 2 with a threat rating of 4. She has 3s across the board on defense, which puts her at about an average durability for a 4-threat character. But as with her husband, she also seems to enjoy offense a little bit more than defense. Her first attack is a physical Braid Bash. Has a range of 3, strength of 5 for 0 power. It has the usual gain power equal to the damage dealt, but it also has 2 additional abilities that make it a really nice strike. First of all, if the attack deals damage and the target character is size 3 or less, after the attack is resolved, Medusa can push the target character short. And I will really quickly bring attention the lack of a direction specified on the card, so that means this push can be in any direction, which is always nice and gives Medusa some really nice board control just in her basic attack, especially because if you get a wild in the roll, the attack gains Flurry, which will allow Medusa to make another Braid Bash attack. This attack doesn't gain the Flurry keyword though. And this is really good. I'll get into just how good it is later, but first we should look at her other attack, Split Ends. This physical area 2 attack rolls 7 dice for 6 power, which basically makes its Thor God of Thunder attack, but the Split Ends doesn't end there. If you roll a wild, the attack will give out the bleed status condition, and before damage is dealt, if the target character is size 3 or less, place the target within range 1 of Medusa. Here we have another beastly area attack that has a high cost, but it can remove enemies off of objective points, and will occasionally hand out the bleed status condition as well. Thankfully, these are her only 2 attacks, but she doesn't really need anything else in that department because she has plenty more abilities with her array of superpowers. First up is her Hair Flip. It is an active power that costs 3 and lets Medusa choose an enemy character of size 3 or less within range 3 and throws them short. And like most other throws in the game, this can only be used once per turn. What is unique about this throw, though, is that it is the only throw in the game so far that can only throw enemy characters, which is kind of cool. Her next active ability is what earns her a spot to be respected when playing against her, in my opinion. Royal Decree is 2 power and lets Medusa choose another allied character within range 2 of her. Then you can either have Medusa be placed within range 1 of that character, or place that character within range 1 of Medusa, though any character can only be placed by this ability once per turn. So this is out of turn movement for other characters, which is strong as it can put them back on objectives after being pushed off of them, put them in bodyguard range, etc., etc. And it is a free movement for Medusa, so characters with larger bases will let her get even further, like the Inhumans' loyal companion Lockjaw. As well, if she has 4 power to play with, she can literally just play leapfrog with a friend by placing them ahead of her, and then she can place herself in front of them. This ability is one that I can see people getting caught off guard by once she begins to hit the table, so respect her and her potential range. She also has the same Inhuman innate power as her husband, lets her reroll 1 die in her attack and defense rolls, and is immune to poison, which is also something we may see on all of the residents of Atlian. But in addition to these, she has the innate power Living Strands. It currently reads exactly like Angela's Living Ribbons after its FAQ. While an enemy character is advancing or climbing, it cannot place the movement tool overlapping this character's base. Enemy characters cannot reroll or change attack dice when targeting this character with attacks. So once Medusa gets into close quarters, the movement restrictions can be helpful, but denying enemies the ability to reroll or modify their attack dice is really going to help her 3s across the board look a good bit better. So that is Medusa's character card all wrapped up because unlike her husband, she has no changes on her injured side. So, pros and cons. Her strike is absurd. A range 3 strike that can build power, can push size 3 characters in any direction if damage is dealt, and on a wild you can make the attack again. And because Flurry just says you can make the attack again, you're able to choose new targets, so Medusa can whip crack her hair at up to 4 different targets and get them to move off of an objective. So her strike is great, and if you really need the wild, you can fish for it with her innate reroll with the Inhuman innate power. And for all of these reasons, I don't see myself trying to use her Split Ends area attack too often unless I really want the guaranteed movement of my enemy's characters. I would much rather save my power for her throw and placement abilities, while still cranking out an average of 3 strikes in a turn. Her other huge check in the pro column for me are her active superpowers. Her throw only targeting characters is, to me, preferable to only throwing terrain. Granted, she can only throw short, but I feel like this is also made up for because it has a range of 3. And then Royal Decree, people are just going to get messed up by this ability, and I'm interested to see just what kind of shenanigans you can pull off with it, especially considering the Inhumans leadership ability that I will talk about as soon as I cover Medusalith's weak point. And to be honest, her weak point isn't even that big of one, but it is her lack of defenses. If we compare her to Spider-Man, she has 1 more stamina on each side, which is nice, at the price of less defensive rerolls and no dodge help at all. Spider-Man lives in a weird world of either getting dazed and knocked out really easily, or he becomes a nigh unkillable with his dice's consistency. Medusa is probably going to be somewhat similar to him in that regard, so don't count on her being able to tank hits super well like her husband can. So with the pros and cons out of the way, where might Medusa find good places to play? Extra power can ensure that she can do everything she wants, so the Cabal and A-Force seem quite reasonable, but not the Brotherhood since she can't interact with terrain consistently. And if you love synergies and combos that may not actually do stuff, but can still be an amazing play, Medusa in Storm's X-Men can get up to some ridiculous stuff to get 1 extra leap during Medusa's game of Leapfrog. Heck, with advanced R&D and a chain of characters for her to move up the board, Medusa could make it to the middle of the table on turn 1 without spending an action. Now that is the King and Queen covered, but what do they bring to their loyal subjects? Blackbolt's leadership ability, King of the Inhumans, says during each of your turns, 1 allied character may spend 1 power at any time. If it does, choose an allied character within range 3 of it. The chosen character gains 1 power. This is an interesting ability for sure, but I'm not sure how it will be best used. You can load up a power-hungry character early in the game since there is only a limit of once per turn, and it doesn't have to be an active character or anything like that. And being able to get that 1 power when you need it is always nice when you're short just that 1 power for a superpower or big attack. But the range restriction is a really big restriction. You will need to either pair up characters who want power, like Valkyrie and Captain Marvel, with characters who can supply it, like Shuri and Vision, and then you also have to keep them within range 3 of each other. The other nitpick here is that this ability is more akin to shuffling your power around than any actual power gain. So it doesn't create a power engine in the same way that the Cabal or Brotherhood leadership abilities do. So in my opinion, this is probably one of the weaker to average leadership abilities that we have seen in a vacuum. But our first 2 Inhumans, each being very well-rounded characters and bringing an arsenal to the table, so maybe it was just too much to give them an extremely powerful leadership ability as well. They may have just been too much to handle, especially considering some of the tactic cards that they also have access to. For example, Attilan Rising is an active team tactic card that any injured Inhuman can play. All allied Inhumans gain 1 power for each allied and injured Inhuman character. Free power. And not just for 1 character, but every character in affiliation. So turn 3, this could easily provide 3 power to 4 out of 5 characters on your team. I mean, it's free. If you're playing Inhumans, please put this card in your 8, because if you're running even just 3 of them on the table, this card will easily net you probably 4 to 6 power. It's going to be really good. The other affiliation-specific tactic card is Terrigenesis. Any Inhuman can spend 3 power to play this card. Choose an enemy character within range 3 holding a civilian token. Then roll 4 dice. You get to deal 1 damage for each crit, wild, and hit in the roll. If the enemy character is then dazed or KO'd by this, you get to score 2 victory points. So each dice has a 50% chance of rolling one of these results, so on average this is 2 damage. And pretty reliably, you should be able to at least get 1 damage in there. So the upside of this card is really high. It provides action-free damage that can even score you victory points and force your opponent to drop an objective. But if this card doesn't hit the high side, well, maybe you did a damage, but that's it. So to capitalize on this card, it needs some setting up with a weakened enemy character. And if you're trying to get them to exactly 1 health remaining to make sure that this card works, then you are almost as likely to just accidentally daze or KO that character before the card can even be played. And you also have to be playing a civilian extraction objective, so again, the upside is high, but the downside is pretty low. And I would be running Attilan Rising before Terragenesis if you had to just pick one. That wraps up my thoughts on the first members of the royal family coming to Marvel Crisis Protocol. I want to give a quick thank you to all the members of the Guildhall who continue to support the channel and what I am doing here. I'm extremely excited to now be able to show my appreciation some, as with some cool tokens and other stuff. As well, if you have any questions about the new King and Queen or anything else MCP related, let me know down in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching, and keep on gaming.